This video is a small update to my last one, where I talked about some of the fixes Russians were doing on their tanks, mostly judging everything from the factory footage. But it turns out that what we have seen is not the final product. The finished tanks were shown on video being transported on rail. Before I really get into this, I would suggest you go and watch my previous video where I talked about the upgrades, because this is going to be a follow-up. But in short, the tanks have been seen with extra explosive reactive armor on the roof of the turrets, on the smoke launchers to cover the weak zone, on the gun mantlet, and ERA on top of the idler wheel in order to protect the tank's weak sides from hits coming from certain angles. There is more, but these are the most important things. Well, now it turns out that they have covered the entire side of the tank in the relic side skirts, including the engine compartment. Previously, the tanks had cage or slat armor covering that area. That was not the best solution, because cage armor does not work all the time. According to the study conducted by the Russians themselves, such cage armor has around 60% chances to work against standard RPG-7 rockets, but that is the best case scenario. Anything with a wider or more narrow warhead is going to get affected much less. Therefore, cage armor is not the best solution, especially for a tank that is facing more and more Western-made anti-tank weapons. Although I don't know what solution they made for the exhaust. Since the cage armor had a gap for the exhaust, it could be possible that they left a hole in the side skirts where the exhaust is located, or maybe they just reverted it to exhaust towards the rear. Sadly, we don't have footage of the tanks from the other side, but hopefully we will get some soon. On top of extra ERA on the roof, on the mudguards, gun mantlet, on the side of the turret and the side of the hull, they added ERA to the rear of the turret as well. This also makes sense since I have seen some tanks being struck in the rear of the turret in this conflict. Now, how much protection is this going to offer, or will it be enough to stop the most common AT weapons? I don't know. Some of the tanks also appear to have the cage armor netting hanging on the turret's front. This has, like many things, been borrowed from the T-90M, and this design is meant to divert the incoming missile or rocket into the ERA. And considering the poor ERA coverage of the turret's front on the T-72B3, especially the bottom, I completely understand this decision. And I'm surprised I don't see this mounted on all of the tanks. Granted, it might not work all the time, but at least it's something. Oh, and the mounts/sensors that I mentioned in my last video still appear to be present, and I still have no idea what their purpose is. Some people have dubbed this tank the T-72B3 Model 2022, which does make sense. Keep in mind that these tanks could have received other internal changes that we can't see, and there has not really been any official statement from the Russians about the upgrades on these tanks. And yeah, I don't think this will have a huge impact on the performance of the tanks. They have still not received the independent and stabilized thermal sight for the commander, and no hard kill active protection system. Slapping ERA all over the tank is just a cheap attempt at increasing the tank's survivability. But that would be all. If you like my content, you can consider supporting me on Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a nice day.